Hey everybody, I wanted to get on today and talk a little bit about why training is so important, right? And how you can actually start thinking about your training a little bit differently. So here's the deal. The reality is that the reason that training exists, whether it be an online course or a classroom or some other type of training event, the reason it exists is to solve a business problem. So you have employees and you have customers and you have some type of challenge that's happening in the business. And that is when training becomes important, is you look at the challenge and you say, why do we have this challenge? How do we help people practice and learn how to overcome this challenge to get to a result? So the key is two things. One is you have to be really clear about what the challenge is. What is the problem that's happening, and why is it a problem, right? Because as we know, especially as learning leaders, that training tends to be kind of the catch-all. Well, we'll solve this by just putting training on it. Well, we know that that's not necessarily the case, right? So a lot of times the problem isn't actually that people don't know how to do it. The problem is that there's unclear expectations, there's no defined process, and to be honest, there's no real identification of what the problem actually is, right? There's lots of symptoms like this is happening and this is happening and this is happening, but not a clear articulation of the actual problem, either a performance problem, a behavior problem, or some type of organizational challenge or problem that exists that needs to be fixed, and then training can help with communicating that, right? And teaching people how to do the thing that will fix the challenge. So that's the very first thing. If you are looking at changing kind of the way that you take in training, right? So a lot of times you'll get a request from a business line or from a particular business leader who says, we need training on this thing and here's what we want created, right? So your goal is to take a step back from that and really put yourself in a strategic position of helping them identify and solve the big business problem. Because at the end of the day, the business exists to be more successful, right? To increase their profit, to increase the number of customers that they have, decrease the amount of challenges that exist as a result of something happening in the work, right? So that's ultimately why we're all here as training professionals. So we really need to help our business lines get to that root of the problem. So the very first question is, what problem are you trying to solve, and what does it look like when that problem is actually resolved, right? So what's the problem and what's the result? So that's the very first thing that you're going to start working with them on, is what is this training going to solve? And then you can look as, is it a behavioral challenge? Is it a skill challenge or a performance challenge or an organizational challenge that needs to have a different type of intervention? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that when you are looking at creating the training solution, the learning solution for that particular learner that you're creating a solution for, is making sure that what you're creating is actually hitting the mark. Because a lot of times what happens is that that we're given this content and information and just go teach this, and then the team members, the customers are just going to automatically take it and apply it into their work. And as we know that that doesn't actually work, right? It used to be the old model, right? We would just open people's heads and put everything in and then hope that they were able to apply it in their work. And as we know intuitively and have learned over time, is hope is not a good learning strategy, right? So what we need to do is we need to really be intentional about what we're giving them and how it allows them to do something different or do something in their actual job, right? So we break it down into, here are the steps that somebody needs to be able to do in order to get to that result that solves the problem. So we really start to unpack what the steps are that somebody needs to be able to do. And when you look at what they need to do instead of what they need to know or understand, what starts to happen is we put our learners in action. We put them in a position where they can learn and practice and apply it directly into what they need to do in their job that helps them actually achieve the results that will solve that business challenge. So the next time that you are starting a new project, whatever type of learning project that you're working on, I challenge you to incorporate these two things. The first one is really actually going to the business and saying, what is the problem you're trying to solve, and work with them until they can articulate it. Sometimes it's very easy for them to articulate the business challenge and the learner's challenge, right? Like, what's going on? What's happening? What result do you want to have happen that's not the one that you have right now? And what that looks like. Other times, this is going to be a really difficult activity for them because it's sometimes different than how they've thought about putting something together up until this point. And so continue to work through that. That's part of a strategy conversation. If you need help with that, reach out to us. This is what we do each and every day with our various clients, is help them have that conversation, help them really gather together as a group and articulate why they're doing the training, why they need to solve this particular business challenge, and what's the right way to do it. And again, sometimes it's unclear expectations, or not having a solid process, or honestly not even knowing what good looks like, right? Or being able to articulate that. Sometimes it's just that you identify that, you let people know, and we're good to go. Other times it's people need to practice until it's something that they are able to do independently with their customers, with their clients, with other team members, right? And that's where training comes in, as you can really help them learn through activity, through doing the steps that they need to actually get to the results that you want them to have. So you'll have more consistency. You'll have more people able to go through the steps and be successful because you're giving them a clear outcome. So that is the second thing, is really articulating what the success path is for somebody to get to that result that solves that business challenge on the front end, and really working through that and looking at that. So I challenge you to do these two things next time you start a project, and see whether or not the learning intervention that you're creating starts to move the needle differently in your organization than it did before. It doesn't take any more time. It doesn't take any more budget and resources than it would to actually just produce the training, right? After you have those conversations, to build the right training instead of a training that maybe just gives them kind of the content, right? The information and the knowledge. It's really reimagining the way that you do that, so you're solving that specific business problem. So hopefully this serves you, and use those two tips the next time you're working on a project. Again, if you want some coaching or some strategic consulting around this, let us know. This is what we do, and we'd love to help you. So until next time, try those two things out and see what happens. All right, enjoy.